The next awardee that I want to introduce is Kathleen Turner, the 2013 Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. A French teacher at Sharon High School, she has an incredible zest, and as they say in Paris, I don't know if I said that right, joie de vivre. Kathleen explains, I was Spanish, Kathleen explains her passion for teaching this way. I did not become a teacher, I am a teacher. From as early as I can remember, I was motivated not only to share knowledge with others, but also to find creative ways to help them understand it. I did not have to decide what my career would be. I simply knew that I would formalize what I'd always done naturally. She began her teaching career in Sharon in 1994 after graduating from Harvard University. She continues to be a beloved and effective teacher who inspires both her colleagues and her students with her creativity and her dedication to the job. At the assembly where she was awarded the state's Teacher of the Year, there was an incredible outpouring of enthusiasm and affection for Kathleen from her students and colleagues. The day she arrived in the school gymnasium where the assembly was held to find a red carpet with a line of students on each side. Kathleen has been instrumental in building Sharon High School's French program. She regularly takes students to Paris during spring break and plans annual trips to Quebec City, and has established an exchange program with a school in Rouen, France. Sharon Teachers Association President Chuck Fazio has justifiably heaped praise on Turner. Honorable, caring, and compassionate are all words he used to describe her. He also noted that she lives life to the fullest and truly loves her work. At the same assembly with the red carpet and all those students, Chuck said, "For those of you who do not know Kathy Turner, I will introduce her with this simple truth. She is the very best and brightest of what we all are. It is my honor to present an MTA Special Recognition Award to 2013 Massachusetts Teacher of the Year, Kathleen Turner." And I think that's the football father.
Thank you. Merci. Good morning. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to speak to you today, and I would like to wish all of you happy last day of Teacher Appreciation Week. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and how I got to where I am and what this last year has been like for me. As Paul told you, I have always been a teacher. I was the kid who read stories to her stuffed animals, taught kids math during summer vacation in first grade, and tutored kids before biology tests in high school. But the origin of what I do as a French teacher is kind of a mystery because I have no French connections in my family. I had never known anyone who had traveled to a French-speaking country. And then on the first day of 8th grade, I walked into a classroom and I heard Monsieur Cormier speaking strings of magical words that were very foreign to me, but somehow captivated me. I didn't have any idea what he was saying, but I grasped meaning through his gestures, his drawings, and his repetition. I felt a spark ignite that day, and I went home and told my parents that I would be a high school French teacher when I grew up. And as atypical as it may seem, and my students always say, "In 8th grade, you knew this?" My professional focus was clear from that point on. I went to Harvard, majored in French, completed the undergraduate teacher education program, and became Mademoiselle Turner at Sharon High School 19 years ago. I can't count the number of times people have raised their eyebrows and said something along the lines of, "What? Why did you become a teacher?" Or, "Wow, you're fluent in French, you love to travel. Why aren't you a translator or doing something for the UN?" Or, "A teacher? But you could have done anything." And I always feel saddened by these comments. Although not stated as such, the message is that teaching is somehow subpar and a lesser profession. And the question is why? Teachers are the ones who prepare students in tangible and intangible ways to function in the world. We help students to develop or strengthen lifelong skills, introduce them to countless content areas, and perhaps inspire a new hobby or even a career path. Sometimes it may feel like we're not making a difference, but we all contribute in some way to honing students' ability to think, analyze, communicate, and be active citizens. And our kind words, tough love, encouragement, and guidance have more of an impact than we will ever know. Education is the foundation on which society is built, and without teachers, no other professions would exist. So sure, I could have done anything, but what I chose to do, and what you have all chosen to do, is the most important, and it's actually everything. What people outside of education don't quite understand is that teacher is the label for those people who have so many talents that they can't decide on only one profession, and so become all of them. And it takes less time to say, I am a teacher, than I am an accountant, actress, administrative assistant, advocate, anthropologist, archivist, artist, baker, banker, bookkeeper, chef, climatologist, clown, coach, computer programmer, copy repair person, counselor, custodian, desktop publisher, detective, dietitian, diplomat, doctor, driving instructor, economist, editor, engineer, financial analyst, flight attendant, floor arranger, hairdresser, interpreter, journalist, judge, lawyer, librarian, mathematician, meteorologist, musician, nurse, painter, pest controller, photographer, police worker, postal worker, psychologist, referee, scientist, seamstress, secretary, security guard, singer, social worker, sociologist, speechwriter, statistician, therapist, tour guide, translator, travel agent, videographer, writer, and zoologist. That just takes too long. And yes, I do have a story for each of those hats that I have worn during the past 19 years, but unfortunately not the cumulative salary. But I was honored last year when my department coordinator told me that she wanted to nominate me for Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. What I didn't know was that there was an extensive three-step application process during which I had to write essays about myself, my teaching philosophy, and my opinions regarding the problems facing public education today. And that essay was solve it in 2 pages or less. I had to videotape one of my classes, and I had to be interviewed by a panel of 10 educators. The coordinator from the DESE said that each of the finalists would spend 5 minutes at the beginning of the interview introducing ourselves and would respond to questions for about 40 minutes. She also said that we should bring our own technology if we needed it for the 5-minute introduction. There was no way that I was going to bring a computer or projector for a 5-minute presentation because it would take me longer than that to set it up. So I went old school and did a show and tell about myself in the format of a lesson. I posted a paper agenda on the wall, complete with the essential question, how do we define ourselves, learning objectives, an activator, class activities, and a summarizer. I brought in objects and talked about my family, my love of French and my obsession with The Little Prince, my teaching, and I'll go back to that, my commitment to Sharon High School, that's the yearbook that was dedicated to me several years ago, and the thrill of summer vacation. But this is the sculpture that I made. I call it a sculpture, I don't really know what else to call it, to explain my teaching. As you can see, the base shows that I teach the French language and introduce students not only to France, but also to the many Francophone cultures throughout the world. I also encourage students to think critically, be global citizens, and be respectful of others. And since language teaching can be difficult in the confines of an English-speaking classroom, I travel with students to France and Quebec on a regular basis. In addition to teaching, I provide a shoulder to cry on, that's Kleenex. I try to solve problems, that's a Band-Aid. And I encourage students, that's a megaphone. And I celebrate successes, large and small, with a gold medal. The spoons show that teaching is a recipe with indefinite quantities of many elements: energy, compassion, intelligence, patience, sense of humor. And the amounts needed of any of these change from day to day, which is why we have different sizes. And sometimes the amounts of those change from minute to minute. I also try to achieve a balance of not being too flexible with Gumby and not too rigid with the Knight, not too teacher-centered, it's my face, Not too student-centered, that's my students. Not moving too quickly with the race car or too slowly with the snail. Having standards that are not too low, 2 + 2 = 4, or too high, with students pulling their hair out and unable to do the work. And not differentiating too much with a maze or too little with a one-way street. And as a language teacher, I try to achieve the balance of the 4 skill areas of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And finally, I think on my feet, and I'm always trying to come up with new ideas. I found out the night after the interview that I had been chosen to represent the teachers of Massachusetts for the upcoming year, and that began an unbelievable whirlwind of events: a ceremony at my high school, interviews with newspapers, radio, and TV, a luncheon at the State House, recognition on center court at a Celtics game, recognition with Wally at a Red Sox game, and then over the course of this year, in addition to giving speeches at various functions, I have been able to go and meet all of the teachers of the year from across the country at various conferences. In January, we went to Arizona, and several weeks ago, we went to Washington, D.C., where we were treated like royalty by Target. And we were carted around in this bus and got to meet Dr. Biden, who had a reception for us at the Biden residence. And there was a ceremony for us at the White House in the Rose Garden with President Obama. And I actually got to meet President Obama in the Oval Office. I have no idea what the Oval Office looked like. I'm not really sure what I said to him. I was a blubbering fool, but I got to shake his hand. I don't have the picture yet. And my term, sort of like Miss America, will culminate at the end of June. But there's one more exciting event after that, and I will be attending Space Camp for a week in Arizona with all of the other teachers of the year. This has been a wild and amazing ride. But although this recognition is an exciting validation of my accomplishments and my passion, I believe that this award is a celebration of public education and of all teachers. I also believe that effective teaching does not happen in isolation. The success of any one teacher is linked to the dedication of new and veteran teachers at all grade levels and across all disciplines. I have been privileged to work with a team in Sharon whose commitment to teaching and learning is second to none, and who have helped to shape me as an educator. When our high school was named a Blue Ribbon School last year, I would have preferred that we be designated a Blue Ribbon District. We would not be successful at the high school, and our students would not be successful at the high school if teachers, counselors, support staff, and administrators at the early childhood, elementary, and middle schools were not laying the foundation for our work. And this is why I am opposed to merit pay. How can one teacher be rewarded over another for students' high test scores or achievements when the reality is that their success is the result of the cumulative efforts of everyone who has worked with them? During an interview last spring, a reporter asked me a double-barreled question. Is your experience in public education as wonderful as you imagined it would be, or have there been unexpected challenges? For me, this was not an either-or. My answer was, without hesitation, yes and yes. Yes, I love what I do. Sure, there have been frustrating days and sometimes frustrating years, but I have never once gotten into the car to go to school in the morning thinking, I can't do this anymore, I wish I were doing something else. My students motivate me and inspire me, and I often think that I learn as much from them as they learn from me. But yes, there have been unexpected challenges. When I envisioned my career, I knew that I would have students with diverse cognitive abilities. What I didn't expect, however, was the extent to which emotional, medical, and socioeconomic circumstances would impact students' ability to concentrate, perform, and achieve on a daily basis. I have students who are experiencing what we think of as typical teenage issues: fights with parents, peer pressure, breakups, failed driving tests, rejections from first-choice colleges. We know as adults that they'll get through it. They don't necessarily. But then there are the students who come to school exhausted because they have to cook dinner and take care of kid siblings and can't do their homework even if they wanted to because their parents are working. I have students who sleep in the backseat of someone's car because they've run away or they've been kicked out of their house. I have students who are trying to come to terms with divorce, illness, and death in families. Students who don't speak English and who aren't accustomed to American culture. I have students with over-involved and under-involved parents. I have students who have already been to rehab to treat drug and addiction problems by the time they're 16. I have students who suffer from debilitating anxiety or depression, and the list goes on and on. I've had these students, and so have you. I had no idea that there would be days when my objective for some students would have nothing to do with French, but everything to do with being sensitive to factors in their lives that are completely beyond my control, and making sure that they don't have a breakdown, an outburst, or a panic attack. I could go on and on. Although the specific situations may vary depending on grade level or shift in proportion from district to district, they exist everywhere for all teachers. As we struggle with the daunting task of maintaining high expectations for students whose very last concern may be the daily agenda on our board, we hear much talk in political arenas and business circles about the problems of public education. Unfortunately, there is little consultation with the educators who grapple with these issues. We are the professionals who could provide the most valuable insight regarding the roots of the challenges we face, as well as offer potential strategies for addressing them. Despite having the best of intentions to improve teaching and learning, many of those who have the power to affect change are quite removed from teachers' daily realities. They draft policies and mandates that may seem sound in theory, but may indeed be ineffective or even unfeasible in practice. That is what I said at the State House in front of the governor last June 18th, and then proposed the following challenge to lawmakers and business leaders. I asked them to show their commitment to public education and ultimately to the nation's children by agreeing to shadow 2 teachers in their home constituencies each year, one in what is considered to be a high-achieving district, in a second week in what has been labeled an underperforming district, in order to witness the disparities that exist within the state and across the country. I invited them into our schools to gain firsthand knowledge of the many facets of our jobs, to spend full days with their hosts, not only to observe their classes, but also to accompany them to parent conferences, faculty meetings, special education evaluations, technology trainings, and required duties. I suggested that they stay with them after school and into the evenings while they correct assessments, plan upcoming lessons, write progress reports, respond to emails, and complete administrative paperwork. And just as immersion is the most effective way for students to learn a language and understand a different culture, I believe that is the best way to fully understand public education. By immersing themselves in our world, these lawmakers and business leaders would have a new perspective on the strengths and the weaknesses of our systems. They would be able to assess, for example, whether reform movements such as Race to the Top foster improved teaching and learning, and to what extent standardized teachings can measure a student's or teacher's success. Moreover, they would see our struggle to meet the diverse needs of our students while adhering to legislation requiring increasing levels of standardization. It is my hope that they would share what they have learned with their fellow leaders, and they would compare notes and evaluate what kinds of reform might be appropriate for all schools and what aspects of reform might be tailored to better meet the unique needs of certain schools or certain districts. Just as we are encouraged to differentiate instruction and assessment for individual students, I would like them to consider the possibility that educational legislation may not always be one size fits all. Ideally, this experience shadowing teachers would give them a heightened awareness of the complexities of education, and that it would lay the groundwork for meaningful collaboration with us to define courses of action for the future. At this point, no one has responded. But I would like to ask you to propose this challenge within your district and invite community members and administrators into your schools and classrooms to see what you and your school colleagues do every day. Thank you for the difference that you make. Be proud of our profession and the difference and the influence that you have. Make sure that your voice, that our voice, is heard. And above all, do not lose sight of the reason you love to teach, your students. Thank you. I got it. Thank you. Thank you.